No worries.
Hello. So sorry for the what's that? Just found a teddy bear or something. There you go. It's not very good. So welcome to the show. Wednesday 8 o'clock. I'm Darren Stanton. We had a slight glitch because there was too much traffic trying to go through, so I couldn't go live. But here we are, just a couple of minutes late. So this week I've got a really special person who I've known for the best part of 20 years. And as you've probably seen on a lot of the PR that I've been pushing, we've got my very good friend, Mr. Peter Wall. Pete, how are you?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you, mate?
I'm good. So Peter's in South Yorkshire, which is, if you're not from the UK, that's about what? How far are you from where I am? About 40 miles, 50 miles?
Yeah, about that, I would have thought.
Yeah, okay.
You looking at the UK, it's right in the middle.
Yeah. So Pete is the number one authority on past life regression, and also obviously one of the best known hypnotists in the UK. So, there's a lot of myths surrounding hypnosis. My friend just jumped on, Gary Witt. Hey buddy, how are you?
Hi, Gary.
So again, Pete, what we're going to do is just have a bit of a chat about how you got into it and what it is and what it isn't. But I think for most people, let's be honest. Is this what you do? Is this what you get up to at the weekends?
Is this what I get up to at the weekend? Did you say? You're frozen on me, Darren. Sorry, what did you say? I can't hear you now.
Yeah.
I'll just talk anyway. Yeah, I got into hypnosis.
I was showing a clip of Dracula. That clip.
Oh, sorry.
So I was just going to say, is that the sort of stuff that you get up to then? So how much of the idea of hypnosis, of that kind of thing, and for those people that are in the UK or might have seen a show from a long time ago, Little Britain, the kind of 3, 2, 1, you're back in the room. How much of it is myth and how much of it is truth?
There's a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis out there. I mean, when I was younger, because I'm quite old, but when I was younger, the films that were out there, like what do they call it, Bela Lugosi kind of films, like the one that you've just shown there were always, mystics with the big hat and the mustache and things, and they were always doing bad things with hypnosis. And so people, it became known as not a very good thing, hypnosis. But over the years, people's attitudes towards it have changed quite a lot. Even people's attitudes towards hypnosis has changed even in my lifetime, since I've been a hypnotherapist, as I'm sure you're aware now, that it's becoming more and more accepted as a proper form of therapy now, which was really classed as an alternative therapy when we first started. So it was a lot more difficult for us. But there are a lot of myths out there. And I still get them coming today. I mean, when I was working in my clinic, I had a lady came to me and wanting weight loss, and I just started talking to her, explaining to her what hypnosis was and what it wasn't, and she just broke down crying, and I had to stop and I said, "Can you tell me what's the matter?" And she says, my next door neighbour's told me, I've told her I'm coming to see you, having hypnosis, for this weight loss. And she's told me you're going to mess about with my brain. And when I go shopping, I'll be running around the supermarket thinking I'm a chicken. See, this is what kind of thing you're up against, because this is what people have.
So I think like stage hypnotists that probably people watching have seen, such as like Paul McKenna in the UK and various people around the world, is they've not really done the profession, obviously, because we're both hypnotists, aren't we? So, it's not done the profession any good, really. And I think that's one of the things that made people quite afraid, really, made people quite afraid to even look us in the eye.
That's right, because what they think is they see a stage hypnotist and they think they've taken control over them, taken control over their mind, and then making them do things against their will and making them do things that they don't really want to do, which obviously you and I know is completely incorrect.
Yeah. Ian's just jumped on, says hello, guys.
You can't somebody if they don't want to hypnotize.
Ian's
you
just
can't
jumped
make
on,
them
says
do
hi.
anything that you don't want, that they do not want you to do. So we all have self-belief. So you can't make somebody do something against their own belief system and things like this. So it's all a myth. I think in the dictionary it says that it's a state of relaxation with heightened awareness. Yeah. And so when you think about it, hypnosis is only a form of relaxation. That's all it is. And once you get into that relaxed state, then we can start looking and you can start thinking about how you're going to change your attitudes towards weight loss or stopping smoking or fears or phobias and things like this.
Yeah, and if anybody's watching,
hypnosis, nobody can control it. I don't care who they are, whether it's me, you, Paul McKenna, Peter Powers, Andrew Newton, who used to be in the olden days, all these people, they cannot make you do anything you do not want to do. Okay? It's a load of rubbish. But he says, well, I saw Darren Brown hypnotize this guy to go and rob a bank. I said, but what it doesn't show you is that he had 60,000 people turned up to be interviewed for that. Out of that, he knocked it down to 5,000. Out of those 5,000, he knocked it down to a couple of hundred. Out of those couple of hundred, he knocked them down to about 50. Out of those 50, he knocked it down to 20. And he found one guy that was willing to do it. And that's how it is.
So if someone was to come along to you, say, for example, let's say someone's got a phobia of, I don't know, say heights or public speaking. What's the first thing that they can experience? So I know people have often said to me, will I be knocked out? People think it's like having an operation and that they're going to be completely knocked out like they're having an operation.
Am I going to be unconscious?
Yes.
So what I say to them is this. Okay, so have you ever had an operation? Yeah? Okay, cool. So what were the surgeons talking about while you're being operated on? What were they talking about? I don't know. Oh, right, so you couldn't hear them. So if I hypnotize you then, and you're going to be unconscious as though you're in an operation, so that when I'm talking to you to try and help you to get over your issues or fears of heights or spiders or whatever.
The sound's gone.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Oh, sorry, you're playing. It's playing.
I just mouthed the words because if you can't hear me, how can I help you? Okay?
The tricks for this one, you have to watch it.
Not unconscious at all. You remember, it's a form of relaxation with heightened awareness. So what they say is that under hypnosis, your senses, sight, smell, hearing, taste, touch, right, are heightened by as much as 30%. So when in my preamble, when I'm talking to my clients, is I explain to them that during hypnosis, you'll still hear everything. You'll hear the clock ticking. You'll hear the dog barking outside. You'll hear traffic going by. Okay? But that's great because it just means that you're going into hypnosis quite naturally. So you will be aware of those signs. Because a lot of people say to me, I don't think I was hypnotized, because I could still hear people talking outside in the traffic. And I go, well, of course you can. Because you're not moving.
I've had that because obviously when I first started out, as a hypnotherapist, you would put people into trance, and then, as you've just said, they'd come out and say, I don't think it's worked. I don't think I'm hypnotizable. And I'm like, well, why? And they would be like, I was still aware of everything around me. Like you say, the sounds, because their expectation is that idea of being absolutely unconscious, knocked out. And when the expectation doesn't meet the reality, they, I must not have been hypnotized, but they have.
That's why they don't believe that they're being hypnotized. You know, so
Yeah.
sometimes you can do convinces with them at the beginning if they're a bit too skeptical, just to show that how the mind works, you know, and how the power of suggestion works. Because a lot of what we do really is the power of suggestion, if you think about it.
It is,
You know,
absolutely.
it's like when we help people to lose weight, we're not actually doing anything. All we're doing is talking to them and guiding them and using the power of suggestion.
And another good example. Yeah, another good example of, I mean, maybe people have had common experiences, Pete, where, you know, we've all got in a car at some point and we've been preoccupied about something, and we're probably driven, you know, we drive to locations that we're familiar with without even thinking about them, don't we? You know, we're safe to drive, but you think, wow, how have I got here so quick? Or sometimes, you know, you'll drive to a location you didn't want to get to before you suddenly, you know, kick back in.
Yeah, because all learned response, all learned things that we need in our lives, like speaking, reading, writing, riding a bike, driving, things like this, they all go into the subconscious part of the mind.
Yeah.
And this is where all your skills are kept, right? All your bad habits are in there as well. If you bite your nails and things like this, all your bad habits are in there. So that all the skills that you learn go into your long-term memory, which is in your subconscious. Your conscious part of your brain is where your short-term memories are. That's how you remember your kids' names and things like that, you know, because it's all short-term memories, what we call short-term memories. So when you're driving, your conscious is thinking, oh, I'll be glad when this lockdown's finished, you know, and I can go to Tenerife, and oh, I could be sat by the pool having a gin and tonic. Oh, it'd be lovely. And while you're doing that in what we call a daydream, the subconscious part of your brain takes over the driving. So that's why you don't crash. You don't go through red lights. You go round the roundabouts the correct way. You turn at the correct junction. It knows where you're going. And so that's really how it is. And so your subconscious takes over the driving because it is a skill that it's got.
Yeah, just say a quick shout out to Gaza, who's messaged. Hi, Gaza. I'll give you a shout later. So, and also in terms of, I mean, how long have you? I mean, how did you get into all this, Pete? Because I met you when we were both on the circuit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got into it via the Mind, Body, and Spirit events. I got made redundant from a job that I was doing, and I was on one of these get back to work schemes, you know, from the job centre. And what I used to do,
unique job, isn't it?
Sorry,
pretty unique job to put you onto.
Yeah, well, they didn't put me into that. Well, they did actually. It's not true, but what I was doing at the time is I used to work with stained glass. I used to create stained glass terrariums and things like this. For those of you out there that don't know what a terrarium is, it's a small little glass house that you're putting in your home with all stained glass and things like that to make it pretty. But then somebody asked me to make a pyramid and put in crystals inside. And so I had sold a few of those. So somebody said, why don't you go to the shows and start selling them? So I was invited to go to Elsica and to Mind, Body and Spirit Fair there. And that's where I first started in the Mind, Body and Spirit area. Yeah. And I just said to him,
you're freezing a little bit, but I think we're okay.
Sorry?
I said you froze a few times, but I think we're okay.
All right, okay. So I said, what are you trying to do? Hypnotize people to buy your products? And he just got talking to me about hypnosis. And then it was there where he told me that he does training in hypnotherapy. And that's basically how I got into hypnotherapy. I was just fascinated. I've always been fascinated by magic, how the mind works.
Yeah.
You know, how you could get a coin and you make it disappear and, you know, boop, pops out behind your ear and things like that.
Sure.
And so I was really interested in figuring out how all this works. And yeah, that's how I got into it all way back in the year 2000.
Yeah,
I met you at a Miriam Gifford show. Do you remember Miriam? I met you at a Miriam Gifford show, and they'd been after me doing talks on past life regression for, you know, a couple of years or so. And the thought of standing in front of a group of people and talking just freaked me out. You know, I had really bad phobia of public speaking. And I always said, no, I'll never give a talk. You know, I can't talk at my stand, you know, on a one-to-one basis in front of a room. And I just met you and we got talking, and you were just about 3 stands down from me. And you were saying, you know, that you're a hypnotherapist and whatever. And Miriam came up and she said, I've had a talk cancelled on me. So I've just been and told everybody, you know, in 1 hour, you're doing a talk on past life regression. I went, no, I'm not. She said, you are. She said, and they're all queuing, waiting to get in. So I began to panic. And I thought, I can't do this. So I came to you and I said, Darren, and I explained the situation. I said, can you help me? And you went, of course I can, mate. Of course I can. Come on. And we went into the room where I was doing my past life regression work.
I remember it.
You hypnotized me and got rid of my fear. And I walked into that room and I gave a talk. And at the end, and I thought, wow, I love this. And that technique that you did on me, I've used on numerous people.
Yeah.
So thanks for that one, mate.
No, you're okay. No problem.
I suppose you'll be sending me an invoice now for that.
Yeah, invoice in the post. I've got a question from my friend Lisa, who's all the way in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And she says, hi, Peter. Please explain the difference between meditation, guided meditation, and hypnosis.
Well, the way I explain it is really, technically, there is no difference. Because the way I explain hypnosis is when I'm giving a talk, is I say, has anybody here been into meditation at any time? And they go, yeah, you know, I've been there. And I go, right. Well, that feeling you get of going when you're so deeply relaxed is the same feeling you get when you're hypnotized. And so technically what I'm doing is when I'm working with clients, it's a form of guided meditation. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the difference between meditation and hypnosis is that in hypnosis, we tend to take them deeper. Okay. So let's say that's your normal waking state. So then you might go into this state here, right, which is a meditation state. And then what we do is we take you down into this next state down here. Okay, so we tend to take you a little bit deeper than you would if you was in a group, i.e. meditation group, doing guided meditation and things like that. And that's how I explain it to people, you know, when they say, what's the difference between the two? Yeah, there isn't a lot of difference. The main difference is we tend to take people down deeper into hypnosis than to meditation.
Fantastic.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, okay. And just a quick shout out. So Laura and David, all the way up in the Highlands of Scotland. I'll give you a shout later, but please have you on board again. Obviously got Ian and Lizzie, and then my good friend Sean Hogg. Sean runs a fantastic tansy market here in the Midlands, and looking forward to getting back to normal at some point, Sean. And then so Laura has said, Laura's put Alison Stead, spiritual medium. I don't know, we'll come back to that. But Laura says, need to get rid of my severe needle phobia. Oh yeah, I can help you with that. That's not an issue.
Yeah, I've created a MP3 download for fear of needles and injections, and that's on my CD website that's available. And they're all on at half price at the moment because of the lockdown that we're in. And I know people are struggling with finances. So I've basically cut all my prices down in half to help people out. But yeah, there's an amazing fear of needles. I had a really bad phobia of needles. My father was in the army back in the 50s and 60s, and we went to Singapore twice. And in them days, the amount of injections you had to have to go to a tropical country like Singapore just freaked me out with all those injections. And again, I was hypnotized to get over my fear of needles. And so what they did to me, and because I know it works, because on Saturday I went and had my injection.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID injection. So my first one on Saturday, I had that done. And normally I would faint. Just as soon as I get that swab on your arm and start rubbing it, I'm gone. Boosh. Nothing. I didn't even feel it. So if you want, You can easily go on that website. It's just the same as
Laura. We'll sort you out.
Yeah, or speak to Darren. He might be able to do it. And it'll be out. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's lots of things out there for needle phobia. It's a learnt response. Don't forget, most phobias and fears are learnt response. So you've learnt it because you've learnt to be terrified of needles, and it could be anything that fires it off. So once you've learnt something, as we know as humans, we can unlearn it just as quick. So don't ever suffer with a phobia for years and years and years, because I've had people that have come to me in the past that suffered for phobias for 30 years. And an hour later, it's completely gone. And it just changes their lives completely.
Yeah.
So don't ever suffer with a fear or a phobia. Go and see a hypnotherapist, right? Or, get one of their DVDs or, MP3.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete. And a quick shout out to my good friend, Taekwon, who I met on Clubhouse. And I believe you're in New York, aren't you? Taekwon, as far as I'm aware, I think you're in New York. Right. Okay. So let's break it up a little bit. Is this something that we can try with the people watching? So do you want to maybe look at some convincers and see how we get on? Who's up for a little bit of fun?
Okay. So, as you know, like on a stage, what they do is they, before they do their stage work, they always do what we call a convincer. And this to see if people are listening to what they're saying. Okay. And so, again, we do this sometimes in therapy. If you think the person's a bit nervous or whatever, we can always do a little convincer to see if they're actually taking on board what we're saying. So the first one I shall do for you then, right, is the one
on this as well. You guys join in. We'll all do it together.
Yeah, you can do it all together. Everybody, that's out there that's watching at the moment, right? What I want you to do is I want you to put your hands together like this for me, and I want you to clasp your fingers really tightly together and cross your thumbs over each other and push your arms right out in front of you. So push your arms right out in front of you right now. And then what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes for me just for a few seconds. And what I want you to do is you close your eyes. I want you to imagine or pretend that your hands are getting glued together right now. I want you to imagine or pretend that your hands are getting glued together. It's like somebody's pouring super glue over them and they're getting stuck tighter and tighter. You can imagine, that the two magnets being drawn together and they're getting tighter and tighter and they're squeezing together tighter and tighter and tighter. That's right. So they're sticking really, really close together, pushing your arms right out, locking those hands and fingers together, getting really, really tight. And what I want you to do in a second, when I click my fingers, I want you to try to open your hands. I want you to try to pull your hands apart when I click my fingers. And what you'll find is that the more that you try to pull them apart, the more tighter they will get. The more you try to pull them apart, they'll stick even more together. And the harder you try, the more they will stick together. And so we're going to do that now. Here we go. So we're going to do it now. Try and pull your hands together, pull your hands apart. The more you try to pull them apart, the tighter and tighter they'll get stuck together. That's right, tighter and tighter. The more you try, the tighter they get stuck together. And you can stop trying now, and your hands will just open quite naturally and easily, right now. There you go. So I wonder how many of you out there was
like some feedback. How many people had that experience? If it didn't work, that's fine, because Peter will explain why that didn't work.
That's right, because if it didn't work, what it means, if it didn't work, what it means is you wasn't listening to me, were you? I didn't tell you to open your hands, did I? I told you to try. So I didn't tell you to open your hands. I said the more you try to part your hands, the tighter they'll get. But I didn't tell you to open your hands. Okay? So
give us some feedback if that worked for you.
On a stage, you would be asked to leave because you're not obviously listening and following commands, as we call it.
So Jane Marvin said, yes, it worked for her.
Yeah. Are your hands, has anybody out there still got their hands stuck together by any chance?
Have a great night.
If you have, they'll come back to normal right now and you'll be able to part them quite easily. Okay?
Give us some feedback, guys. Everyone back with us? Did that work? Did it didn't work? Let us know.
Good. Another one I like, the other one that I like, that I find really fascinating as well. I like this. I do this with children as well, with young people, and as well as adults, because I find it's quite fascinating how this one works. And again, what you do is you put your hands together like this, okay? and you clasp your hands, cross over your thumbs again. Okay, so everybody out there, have a go at this. It's quite good. You can do this with children and grandchildren and nephews, nieces, you know, things like this. It's quite funny. Now what you do is you get them to pull their fingers apart like this. So there's a gap, like, I'll try and get that there so it's not blocking. There's a gap between your fingers, okay? And I want you to push them out as far as you can, but keep your thumbs crossed, right? And then what I want you to do is I want you to look at this gap here in the middle. Just look at the gap, focus on that gap in the middle, okay? And as you focus on that gap in the middle, right, you'll be amazed, because what will happen is you're focusing on it, your fingers will start to draw together. And you won't be able to stop it. It'll just do it automatically. And your fingers will get closer and closer and closer and closer together automatically. Yeah? And then what happens is when they touch, you could give the command like sleep, things like this. So that's how it would be used in therapy. But when you do it with children, they're going, you know, and they're trying to stop it from working. And they close up. You know, that one's quite good as well.
So Taekwon in the States, he says, "Wow, my goodness, correct. I couldn't try to open my hands. They were stuck. It was kind of scary for a bit."
Yeah.
And Sean said, "I couldn't write. Yes, my hands were stuck together on the phone because my hands were in fact stuck together." So we're going to touch on the main thing that Pete's known for in a second, which is the past life regression, which, you know, we've both done over the years, but Pete is the #1 guy at this. So obviously you do train as well, Pete. People come to you to train as well as having therapy. They come to you to train as clinical hypnotherapists, don't they?
Yeah. What I did is when I got to 65, I decided I wanted to retire. And so I retired from the therapy world of hypnosis. But after a year, I got really bored. And so people were saying to me, with 20 years of knowledge, as full-time clinical hypnotherapist, I did it every day. So they said, you know, why aren't you teaching? You know, all your knowledge and skills that you've learned over years will be wasted. And so I spent about 18 months putting together my hypnotherapy course. And so, yeah, that's been quite successful. I've been running that now since 2017. And so, yeah, that's been quite successful. So I've been training people on that, how to become a clinical hypnotherapist. My course is accredited by the National Council of Psychotherapy, to which I was a member, but now in 2018, they gave me a fellowship. So now I'm a fellow to the National Council of Psychotherapy, and they accredit my course. So, you know, it is a fully accredited course by a registered governing body.
Well, we're going to show a little clip, Pete. Can you just kind of talk us through before I show it? I think it's the clip of the fast induction. Do you want to just explain what it is you're doing?
On my training.
Yeah.
Can I talk through it?
Yeah. You've probably talked through it, actually. Yes. Let's put it on. Oh, sorry, you won't be able to talk through the clip. Sorry, it's just said mute.
That's all right. You play the clip, and then I'll explain. Deeper and deeper. That's right. More and more relaxed now. 10 times more relaxed. Deeper, 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 deeper. That's right.
Okay. So you want to talk us through what happened there?
Yeah. So I think this is module 8 in my course. There are 10 modules in my course. I think this one's module 8, where we talk about stage hypnosis and fast inductions. Up to this point, all the training I've given them have been long, slow, drawn-out inductions. So this is the first time that they ever come across seeing me doing fast inductions. If you notice, the girl sat next to the guy when I did the second lady. She went, you know, oh my God, because they hadn't seen it before. So I found that quite funny. So what we're doing basically here is we're doing what they call arm levitation. You know, it's one hand's got the bag of sand in it, the other one's got balloons, and so they do this. And then what we do is a thing called an interruptive pattern. So basically, by grabbing their arms and making them opposite to where they were and giving the command sleep, we bypass what they call the critical factor. Remember I said you've got your conscious and your subconscious, and in between that is another place. I call it the unconscious, some people call it other things, but it's also known as the critical factor. And so what we can do is we can bypass that and get straight into the subconscious and give the word sleep, the command sleep, and it knows what that is. So that's where you see them when they fall forward. Okay, so that's what I was doing there. So I got them where the arms are up and the other one's down, you know, where they're holding the sand and the balloon, and then jump the shock, boof, bypassing the critical factor, getting straight in to the subconscious. And that's how it works on a stage, basically. Because the thing about your subconscious, it doesn't know fact from fantasy, and it doesn't know what's real and what's not. So when you give it a suggestion, like when you hear this music, you're going to think you're, I don't know, Kylie Minogue, Elvis Presley or whatever. And every time you hear this music, you're going to think you're Elvis Presley, Kylie Minogue. So what happens is that every time they hear that music, because it's gone into the subconscious believes that they are Kylie Minogue or Elvis Presley, and they'll get up and start singing and doing it. Okay. So remember at the beginning of this, though, when we talked about myths and misconceptions around hypnosis, one of the biggest fears that people have is, especially ladies, by the way, it's a fact, is control. My dreams I try to visualize. I'll come back to that one. It's control. And so what happens is if we talk about a stage, so let's suppose you, Darren, was on the stage, and I said to you, when you hear this music, you're going to think you're Elvis Presley. And every time this music comes on, you're going to get up and jump around and, you know, sing like Elvis Presley. So in your mind, you might think, oh, I love Elvis Presley. He's brilliant. Oh, I'd love to be Elvis Presley. So what you're doing is, because you're not asleep or unconscious, you can hear everything and you're talking to yourself. So that's going now into your subconscious. So every time that music comes on, which is an anchor, we've anchored the suggestion to the piece of music, you then get up and start dancing. Now, if I came to you and I said to you, whenever you hear this music, you're going to think you're James Bond. All right? And you're going to get up, put your fingers together, think you've got a gun, and you're going to be running around thinking you're the super spy. And in your mind, you're thinking, I hate James Bond. I don't want to be James Bond. It's boring. I've never seen James Bond. It's a load of rubbish. So what you're doing now is you're rejecting the idea.
All right.
You are not allowing that to go into the subconscious. So every time the Bond music comes on, you'll just sit there and won't do it. And it's the same in therapy. Yeah? If the person rejects what you're saying to them in therapy, it won't work.
Right.
So this is how we explain what control is. We, as a therapist, as a hypnotist, we have no control over you. Darren Stanton, Peter Powers, Andrew Newton, all these wonderful hypnotists, stage hypnotists, have no power over anybody. It's a myth. They cannot make you do anything you do not want to do. Right, let's have a look at this one then. Have you had any success getting people to visualize under hypnosis who have trouble visualizing with their mind's eye normally? Yes. Because what I say to them, I get people that come to me, you know, and they say, I can't visualize. Wow, you can't visualize? And they go, no. How do you survive then? What? How? You'll be dead. What do you mean? I says, well, without visualization, how do you know where you are? How do you know how you get here? How do you know how to get home? Where's your car? In the car park. What color is it? Red. How do you know? Well, it is. No. When I said, where's your car? An image popped in your head of the car park. When I said, what color is your car? An image of your car, red, popped into your head. That's called visualization. Without visualization, you would not survive. You can't do anything as a human, because it is part of what we do. We all visualize. Whether you know you do or you don't, we do. Okay, so we all visualize. We cannot survive in this world without our imagination and without our visualization. But what I do with people who say they can't visualize anything, I go, that's fine. I don't want you to visualize. What I want you to do is I want you to pretend. Now, I know you know how to pretend, because you used to pretend playing cowboys and Indians with your brother, didn't you? Or you used to pretend playing with your dollies, having little tea parties and pouring imaginary tea and drinking it. So I know you can pretend. So we won't ask you to visualize, we'll ask you to pretend. How's that? And they always go, okay, and it always works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that helps, Taekwondo. Yeah, I know you. Kate, when you was all at Kylie Minogue, Kate put, "I should be so lucky."
I should be,
That's what
I
that was
should
about.
be so lucky.
Again, Taekwondo, same person says if they were to be left asleep and you don't wake them, would they normally wake up like 6 hours later?
Of course they were. There is no case in the history of hypnosis that anybody has ever got stuck in hypnosis. People say that to me. What happens if you hypnotize me and drop dead? Does that mean I'll be stuck in hypnosis forever? No. It's just a form of relaxation with heightened awareness. So because you won't hear my voice, you'll wake up normally and go, what's going on? He's not spoken to me for ages, right? And you'll probably see me, having a heart attack or something on the floor. So no, you can never, ever get stuck in hypnosis. That's like saying, if I wash my hair, it'll never dry. I mean, I haven't got a problem with that, obviously, but, it's just, that's another myth. You cannot get stuck in hypnosis. Even if you were doing it over Zoom, things like that, if you lost connection, because they're so relaxed, they'd probably just fall into a natural sleep and wake up a couple of hours later, whatever, normally anyway. So no, you can never, ever get stuck in hypnosis.
Great stuff. So again, just feel free. You've got any questions, anything you'd like to ask Pete? Now's your chance. Like I say, he won't say himself, but he's the top guy in the country, and it's not often you get access to him, really. So what I want to move on to, Pete, is obviously the kind of cool stuff, which is what you're known for. And I must admit, as somebody that started off obviously on stage and moved more into clinical work. And again, I did quite a lot of stage stuff with past life regression. And even though I started off as a skeptic, some of the things that I encountered were just beyond belief, really. So first off, if we just touch upon, and again, if people that are watching, if you've had an experience, so if you go to a particular place and you feel like a connection or anything like that, or you've got an affinity to a period in history, or you feel close to a particular historical person, or if you've had any experiences, or indeed you may have been hypnotized, please let us know. What's it all about, Pete?
Or even if you keep getting a recurring dream, so you keep getting the same dream over and over and over and over again. So I'll talk about that one as well.
Just before we move on, I'll just finish off with David said, does that mean the results of hypnotherapy won't last? Because you said that the person would come out of trance.
Yeah.
He asked the question, does it mean that the person would the results wouldn't be long lasting?
No, of course they'll be long lasting. It depends what they're coming to you for. Because remember what I said at the beginning, like with driving or with any learned skill, something you do repetitively, yeah? So when you went to school and you're doing your times table, you didn't just do it once, they made you repeat it. So it ends up going into the subconscious part of your mind, okay? So when it goes in there, it stores it. That's where your long-term memory is. So people say to me, how long will this last, this treatment? How long do you want it to last?
Yeah.
So by accepting it and letting it go into the subconscious, it'll be there for as long as you want it to be. Yeah. So it can either be a short-term thing or a long-term thing. I stop people smoking and they never smoke again, ever. And that's just in 1 hour, one session. So it can be, a long-term thing, but it's all up to the individual. Remember, we have no control over people whatsoever. But if they take on board as a therapist what we're saying to them, yeah, and they allow it to go into the subconscious part of mind, it'll be there for as long as they want it to be there.
Yeah, and you can see that Amanda said she's worked with you.
Yeah. Hi, Amanda.
And a quick hello to Claire Glishford, who's one there. Give me a second. Yeah, so she went to Lindisfarne.
Oh, Lindisfarne. Yeah.
Do you know that? Okay, Pete. So
people say to me, because they're in England, they think they're only going to stay in England, when you regress them, but they could be anywhere in the world.
Yeah. So what is it? What is it not? So can you just explain to people what it is, basically?
Right. Well, there's different types of what we call regression. There's regression where we take you back in this life, to your childhood and things like that, to resolve any issues that there may be from that. Then there is past life regression, where we take you beyond this life into the lives that you've had before this one. Okay, that's called past life regression. Then there's two types of that. There's what I call exploratory past life regression, which is what I used to do at the Mind, Body, and Spirit Fairs. And then there's clinical past life regression. Clinical past life regression is where we go back and resolve any issues that you may have in this life that is a result from something that happened to you in the past, all right, in a past life.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one called progression. Progression is where we can take you into the lives you've yet to have, into the future. Okay? And so people say to me, well, how can this be? How can you take somebody into the future because it's not happened? And I said, well, how do you know it's not happened? You see, time as we know it is created by man. We created time. Yeah? And who's to say it's correct? And they say that there's a thing called the space-time continuum. I don't know if any of you guys out there have heard of that, the space-time continuum. In one of the Star Trek films where they had to go back and get the whale to bring it back for Voyager, yeah, they went through the space-time continuum to go back in time because obviously there were no whales in the future. And the space-time continuum is basically, if you imagine a circle, this is the circle of life and you're in it right now. But then there's another circle here. And in this circle, these are all your past lives. Then there's another circle here. And these are all the lives you've yet to come. Okay, so they're a bit like the Olympic rings. So you're in this. So as a regressionist, what I do is I take you into this one and we go boom and we shoot into there and have a look at your past lives. So there's no logical reason why we can't go there and jump into your future lives neither. Okay, so these are the four main, if you want to call it, types of past life regression, types of regression. Is there any connections between psychic mediums and their craft? Well, I'm not a psychic, so it's hard for me to make a comment on the psychic side of things.
Are you still there, Pete?
That kind of.
I think he's dropped out for a second. I'm sure he'll come back. Just bear with us, guys, if you can still see me.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, you dropped out there for a second. Are you back in the room?
Yeah, and now you're back in the room.
Can you just give us some indication that you guys have got us? Are we back? Are we broadcasting? Just give us some comments, please. Can still see and hear you. Thanks, Laura. Yeah. I don't know what it was, technical glitch, but you dropped out.
I got a little flag that came up and said it could be due to a bad internet connection. But looking down, I've got full strength on mine, so I don't know what that was.
Cool. Claire says we're back online, so that's good.
Yeah. So when we dropped out, I think I was talking about the differences between past life and psychic. Yes. As I said, I'm not a psychic, so it's not really for me to say how that works and what they do. So that's a totally different subject to me, to what I know. I have talked to psychics about things that have happened in past lives that I don't understand, and they explain to me what it is and things like that. So, but for me to make a comment about, is it, past life and this, is that how that, I have no idea.
If I maybe stick to some of the experiences you've had, Pete. So the PLR. So what have been some of the highlights of your career up to now in terms of probably the most significant evidence, if you like, that something's something's there.
Yeah, you see, as I say to people, I didn't believe in past lives and, when you die, you go places and all that kind of thing. Because I was in the military and we were taught back in the 70s, that if you're in a battle or whatever and your father, your brother, your best mate gets shot and he drops on the ground, it's just a lump of meat hitting the deck and that's it, nothing. And that always freaked me out, because I've always felt there was something more, to this mortal coil than what we have. I'm not a very religious person either, so I'm not into that religion side of it. I'm more into dimensions. I believe in different dimensions myself. And so when I first started doing past life regression, I used to think, wow, they're paying me this money just to make up stuff, and I always thought it was a bit strange, really. But what I found is that people started to go away and do research and then come back and tell me that what they told me, where they were in that past life, could have been in the 1600s, 1800s, whatever. And they'd actually proven that they were there and that person did exist and that person was a real person. After a while, after 3 or 4 of these things, I had to start changing the way I thought. And over the 16 to 18 years, I think it was, I was a past life regressionist. My whole outlook on what happens to us when we die has completely changed. I'm no longer scared of death and things like that. And I believe that we do come back, several times if that is what our energy is required to do. So yes, it completely changed the way that what I thought about. So yeah, I came across quite a few interesting things. People say to me, "What's the most exciting thing that's ever happened?" During past life regression. I've been doing it a long time, and there's been lots of exciting things. But certain things stick in your mind. The first time that somebody started speaking a different language to me, I found quite fascinating. I wasn't quite sure what was happening at the time. This was in a place called Lytham St Anne's, and I was regressing a young guy there, and he ended up as a Sioux Indian in America, and he was a medicine man. And as he was going to, I asked him to go to his teepee because I wanted to know what herbs he had inside, and all that kind of thing. Because obviously, if he's a medicine man, he would know what they were. And as he was walking to it, he was quite good because he was actually moving because he's walking. His shoulders were going and his legs were moving. Mm-hmm. And then he just turned and he just went something like, what? All right, well, hello, what's happening here? So I said to him, what are you doing now? He said, I've just told them children to stop playing with them spears and knives. They're going to cut themselves and then I'll have to sort them out. Right, and then he did it again. And then he says, what's happening now? And he says, these women, he says, they're all talking and they're not scraping the furs. We need them for winter. And I've told them to shut up and get on with it. I went, wow. So what I did is I started asking him questions. What? Peter, what are you thinking? Crap, undo. What's that for? And
we are talking a different language, yeah.
Oh, right, no. I'm a psychic when we get into the future. Yes, it's based off the saying your future is in space time or a similar concept. It can be read. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's just more or less what I was saying earlier. And that's why I started asking questions about, like what's the Sioux word for sky, for tree, for bird, for river, for fish, for people, for horse, things. Or anything I could possibly think of, I just rattled them all out. And because I recorded it, in them days on a tape, do you remember the old tape?
Yeah.
I recorded it onto a tape player, And I don't know if you remember, there used to be a guy that used to come around the Mind, Body and Spirit fairs called Wananichi.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what?
The big 6 foot.
I was thinking about that guy.
The guy with all his feathers and everything. Yes. And I played it to him and I said, can you tell me what language he's talking? And he said, no. And he says, what is he? I said, well, he's Sioux. He said, well, that's why I don't understand what he's saying. I says, why? He says, because I'm Chippewa. I'm Chippewa and he's Sioux, so I don't know what he's saying. I went, oh, that's disappointing. He said, well, what I can tell you, he's definitely speaking Native American.
Yeah,
Whoa,
where was this guy from?
that got me excited. And then there was another one that sticks in my
What's
mind.
that, Pete? And the client, where was he from originally?
The client,
Yeah.
he was 18 at the time, and he did crystal healing at the same clinic that
Yeah,
I
but he's not like been to America and stuff and got
No,
an
no, he's
interest
never
in
been
it.
to America.
Just come out of nowhere.
No, yeah, he's never been to America. He didn't know anything about America at all. He was quite a shy guy, a young shy guy. So no, he hadn't been abroad as far as, And I asked him, have you ever been to America? He went, no. He didn't know anything about America. So I found that fascinating.
Maybe what about the trains? That's quite an interesting story. The railway.
The railway one, yes. I regressed. Well, no, I didn't regress, actually. This is not a regression. I'll tell you why. A lady came up to my stand at I think it was Elsica, and she says, do you regress children? And I said, well, up to a certain age, not little ones, but, up to, if that's the right word I'm using. And I asked her why. She says, well, when my son was about this big, we went to York for the day, and it started raining. So we took him into York Railway Museum, and he really didn't want to go. And he was running around causing mayhem and what have you. So I ended up grabbing hold of his hand, and we're walking around, and he's pulling and pulling, as the kids do. And suddenly he stopped. So I looked down, and he was looking at this really old steam train. And then he just looked at his mother, and he says, Mummy, when I was bigger, I used to work on one of those. I went, wow. I says, what did you do? So I told him, shut up, idiot. What's he thinking, And then he started telling her which lever made the train go forward, what made it go backwards, what each dial did, right? How he used to like putting the coal onto the fire. The shovel has a special name, apparently, I don't know, right? And he was coming out with all this stuff. And he said he was bigger than Daddy, and he had a big mustache that came down here.
Wow.
And so she says, when I got home, I sat, got him in front of me, and I said, now, what were you talking about? And I don't know what you mean, Mummy. And so she says, he couldn't tell me anything, or he couldn't remember. So I wanted to know if you could regress him to go back to see, who he was. I said, well, yeah, because you see, the fascinating thing about trains is they're logged in and out of stations.
Mm-hmm.
When you get on a train as a driver or a footman, or I don't know what they're called, shovelman or whatever, you're logged in, and so you could get a lot of information from it. And I was really excited. So I said, tell him to give me a call, or you could bring him and I'll work with him. Because she says, I keep asking him, but he's a lot older now. I think he was about 17 then. And she says he has no memory of it. I said, well, it don't matter. As a regressionist, we can take him back. And what happened was that she rang me and said he won't come and see you. He's not interested. So I never got to find out. But the reason why I talk about it, if you do have children, nephews, nieces, grandchildren, and they do say something, ask them about it. Okay, so were you bigger than Mummy or Daddy? What was your name then? What did they call you? Yeah? So start asking them questions. Ask them where they live. Right? What did their house look like? Ask them to go outside and look at the door, see if there's a number on it or a name. Yeah? Get them to walk to the end of the street. And they could do this even with their eyes open, because what's at the end of every street? The name plaque. Yeah? So you can find out what street they're in. Ask them if they live in a town, a city, a village. What area are they in? And go away and research it.
And there's been plenty of documented cases where people have gone to like parish records, and not when people have traced their family tree, the genealogy. There's been lots of people that have traced the information that came out whilst in the session.
That's right. If you go on YouTube and type in Peter Wall past life regression, you'll see me when I was on BBC One with Nicky Campbell on Big Questions, and one of the questions that they were asking on that program was about regression and could you be an animal in a past life. Okay, so obviously, as in South Yorkshire, in this area, I was really well known at that time for past life regression. I was invited on and they asked me if I could take somebody with me that had done research. And I said, I've got just a woman. I've been working with down in Lincoln. I regressed her in Lincoln. And she did a lot of research. And her name was Tamar Scott in 1856. And so when she got the 1800 census, she found there were 8 Tamar Scotts down in London, because that's where she was at the time, in London, but only one was registered at number 11 Lower Berkeley Road, which is the address that I got from her under Regression.
Wow.
She followed that on to find out, by looking at the census going through, she met a guy called Lewis Meadows, and they got married. She moved from London to Huntington, and they had 9 children, and that she died in her early 60s. Now, one of the things I never do with past life regression, for exploratory past life regressions, I never take my client to their death. You've already been through it. You don't need to go through it again. So I never do death work. I don't do any of that stuff. So the next thing she was going to do, because what she did, she got an Indian mommy. Talk to her, if she still remembers it. You see, the thing about children as well is when they remember these things, it's usually their life they've just left, because it's the most freshest that's still in their mind. When these people have fevers, they see stuff. Again, you see, with fevers and that, anything that opens up the subconscious will allow information to flow through. So when you're in that state, where you're sort of like relax, you're shaking, but your conscious is going, not as prominent, then it can come from your subconscious. So going back to Sarah, she actually got the marriage certificate for Tamar and Lewis Meadows. One of the interesting things on the bottom of there was where she signed, she put a cross, and the registrar wrote her mark, so she couldn't read or write. And the way I got the address for the street is because she was a housemaid, I got her to ask the cook, who could read and write, what they called the street that they lived on. And the cook told her, and then she told me. And that's how I got the address.
Wow.
But she found all kinds of things. She even found out where Tamar Scott's buried, and a daughter went to the church, found the grave, and stood and looked down at her own grave. I mean, how freaky is that?
Have you got any comments, anything else, anything we'd like to ask Pete while we're talking? I mean, for me, I got regressed because the thing about me is, even though I'm a hypnotist, I am out in seconds. Like, I'll tell you a story, and don't be put off if you want to train in hypnosis, but I can remember going back, must be 20 years plus. We were being put into trance by the instructor, and I was sat on this chair with no arms. Anyway, we're going along, and then suddenly I'm aware that I'm doubled over, and I go like that, and my face is like covered in blood. And what I'd done, I was that deep in trance. I felt sideways, smacked my nose on the chair, and I bust my nose. And then for the rest of the course, it became a running joke because the instructor would say, "Make sure you sit on a chair with arms.
Make sure you don't take him. Stop doing all them deepeners on him."
Now, the point of this was that, I was regressing, obviously not by yourself, by somebody else. And for those that are not in the UK, Cornwall, the southwest, it's very Pirates of the Caribbean because it's on the coastline. It's got lots of, it goes back centuries, probably 1,000 years plus, and it was known for smugglers. Now, I've always had an affinity to the sea, and Cornwall is, I call it my spiritual home in a way because, I need to see the sea at least maybe a few times a year. And I was regressed, and in the past life, I was about 6 or 7, and I can remember climbing up this rigging, climbing up the ship, and I was then the regressionist asked me what the name of the ship was, and I said I don't know. It's because I couldn't read, and then all this information came out, and basically there's a place in Cornwall which I'd never been to called Georgetown. And it used to be a naval dockyard before the naval, for the warships in the 17th century. Yeah. And it's still there to this day. It's where they shoot the famous show called Hornblower. And they actually shot Pirates of the Caribbean in parts of this. So it's all the big old rigging ships. And you know what? It's not changed in 1,000 years in terms of the little twitchels and different alleyways. And as soon as I got out of the car, I burst into tears for no reason at all. And I just literally could navigate myself all the way around this part of the, and again, that was just so overwhelming in a way. So again, even though I'm quite skeptical and background in psychology and stuff, this I think for me, there's clearly something in it. You know what I mean? Because why should I react like that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't understand, really. You know, and a lot of things we're still learning. Is there any correlation between life, business success in past lives to present lives? Yeah, there can be. You know, if you're a successful business person in a past life and you bring that skill with you into this life, then there's no reason why you can't be a successful person in this life. Think about children who can just walk up to a piano and just start playing like Mozart and stuff. Never been taught, never been near a piano, could just start playing it instantly. And that's because they would have learnt that skill in a past life and they're bringing it back bringing it back again today.
Because they say that sometimes we can actually bring issues with us as well, can't we, from a past life?
We can bring it.
That we need to resolve in this life.
When you think about what I said about past life clinical, see, in past life exploratory, where we just go in and we explore, you know, briefly who you were when you get all the information, the dates and everything, so you go away and research it. It's fun part, you know, no danger. You can only go to a time and a place where you felt happy, safe, secure, and where no harm could come to you. So the subconscious knows only go to the happy times of that past life and not the bad. That's one thing. But then if you come to me and you've got something wrong with you that's not explainable, if you have a sudden fear of something, or you have a pain in your body, there's no physical reason why you should have that pain, but it's quite the word's dropped out of my head. Disability. No, I can't say it.
Debilitating.
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you. And you know, so then that smacks to me of a thing that we call cell memory. So what's happened is you brought a memory from a past life and it's affecting the cells in your body now, so that the cells think there's an injury there. Yeah. So it's acting like there is an actual injury. So if you were shot with an arrow in the shoulder, you know, during a battle, hundreds of years ago, but something you catch it on a door or something like that, then that can reactivate that memory, and then your brain thinks, the subconscious thinks you've been shot with an arrow. So it puts all the feelings and everything there about it, gives you the pain and everything. So what we can do then is go back to that point and then go through that. But then as you come back, we leave everything that's associated with it there. We do a thing called the law reverse effect. So we leave it there so you cannot bring it back into this life. And then within a week or so, everything goes away. And it's the same with sudden fears, like sudden fear of water. Can't go anywhere near water. Oh my God, I don't know why I used to swim every day. You know, I can't go near the sea anymore. Then again, that's a memory from something that's happened in a past life. What can trigger that off sometimes is that in a past life, you probably drowned. And the day and the time and or the month and the time of when that happened and the age you were then can click in at the same month and the same time and the same age when you are in this life for no apparent reason. It just goes whoosh, and you're terrified of water.
Wow.
So if you have anything like that, go see a past life regressionist. They can take you back. You can find out where it came from and leave it there, so you no longer have that fear.
I think for me, it's like the first time I became aware of it was as a kid, because we used to have a show in England. I'm not sure if it was in the States or other parts of the world, but it was Arthur C. Clarke Investigates, and it was this guy used to go around investigating different sort of paranormal, metaphysical things, and past life regression. It must have been like in the 80s, and this woman was living in Australia, and she swore that she lived in like the southwest of England, like Gloucestershire, around that area. And at the time, obviously, no internet, no access to information was it was just literally paper documents. And she had never left Australia. And she described this dirt track. I mean, as you said, Pete, not everyone's Elvis. Most people are nondescript people. And she described this barn, and it was a big bell tower, and it was really unique and ornate. And then she said, on the floor, we've got this particular pattern on the floor, almost like floor tiles almost, but going back centuries. And the researchers, they spent literally like a year with her, getting all this information, keep going out to Australia. And then they managed to get her over to England, and they filmed it, probably on YouTube somewhere. And they got to this particular part. It's all rural. It was all in the country. But they got to this particular dirt track, and she literally went hysterical. She said, I can't go any further. I can't go any further, right? And they reassured her that she'd be okay. And literally, Pete, as she says, when we go around this corner, right, she was like this, when we go around the corner, we're going to see a big bell tower. There'll be a church there. There'll be this, that, and then there'll be a farm building there. And literally, as they turned the corner, she went and burst into tears because it was all there. And the most powerful thing about it was they spent like weeks. Now, the way she said she lived, the guy that owned that property kept his cows in there. It was a cow shed now, and yet she reckoned she lived in it, and it had decades and decades and decades of cow dung, pressed down.
Dig down.
They spent a few weeks excavating down and down, gusting on down, a lot of different layers, and what they found was the exact same floor tile that she described was what was there, like centuries deep.
It's mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've come across things like that as well, but similar to that. I mean, there's on YouTube. There's loads and loads of things about past life regression on there. There's the one that I used quite a few times in my talks. It's called the Barra Boy. Barra is a small island off of Scotland. And if you go into that, it's split into about 4 or 5 different sections. And this little boy talks about how he lived, because he's in mainland Scotland. And he talks about how he's missing his other mummy, which lives in Barra, and about how the house, what it looked like, the garden with the fence and the path down to the beach. They had a dog, what the name of the family was, and all that kind of thing. And this guy from America who was writing a book on past life regression, he heard about it, came over, and they ended up going to Barra, and eventually they found the house and what have you. And one of the things he said was, it sticks in my mind, is that Mummy didn't like going upstairs. So when she asked his mummy today, asked, why didn't your mummy then like going upstairs? She says, because there's something there she doesn't like. And when they got into this house that was there, when they were still at the bottom of the stairs, he pointed and says, look, Mummy, and at the top of the stairs was this stag's head.
Wow.
And she didn't like it. And then he said he drew a picture and he pushed it in between the door jamb. And they actually found that picture that in this life that he had. It's just mind blowing, isn't it?
It's crazy. Well, in a few weeks' time, we're going to have on Barry John. I know you know Barry. Barry's again a very, very well known spiritual medium. And Barry used to be on a TV show called Most Haunted here in the UK, which that show was absolutely massive about 10 years ago. So Barry's going to be coming in and talking to people.
Felix on that, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've kind of the hours. We're on an hour and 10 minutes. So
oh my goodness me! I have other exciting things.
Talk for England. Both of us can. So, is there anything that anyone would like to any comments? We'd love you to kind of give us some likes, show us some love, as they say. And if you've got any questions for Pete, because again, even though he's my friend, he is, he's such a fascinating guy, and happy to help. And even if he wants to train or whatever or get advice, I'm sure he'd be happy to point you in the right direction. So I'm just going to put a panel up, Pete. So if people wanted to connect with you, I'm just going to put your website up.
Yeah, that's my training website for the academy. Okay, so if you're interested in becoming a clinical therapist, you can go on there. There's 2 ways you can do that. You can either do it if you're in England, you can come to the classes and we do it in class. There's 10 modules involved. Or if you're not in England or you can't attend the classes because it's 10 weekends you have to commit to, then you can also do it online. My online course, I've made all the videos of me training. So it's like me training you personally in the comfort of your own home. And that is also, that downloadable course is also accredited by the National Council of Psychotherapy.
And that's your email there as well, isn't it?
That's my email address. You can email me any questions about past life or regression or anything like that. I have my very last ever past life regression training. It was supposed to have been at the beginning of last year, but we've been having to put it back because of the lockdown here in the UK. So once the lockdown is finished and we can get back together again, I will be running my very, very last, because I'm definitely retiring, past life regression.
I've been saying that for 10 years.
Yeah, you say that over again. The great comeback.
Sure, Pete, let's do a show. Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm training other people how to do it my way, the Peter War way of past life regression. So they'll be taking over from me doing the training and things like that, and they're fully qualified and things like this. So if you're interested in that, email me. I'll send you out all the details about it, the venue, cost, etc. I've already got 3 people booked on that course. I tend not to have more than about 10 if I can help it. I like to keep it nice and cozy and comfortable. Okay. So any of you guys interested in learning about past life, I don't train anybody. Obviously, you have to have some form of skills in the communication business, like if you're a psychic, medium, things like this. If you do NLP, EFT, hypnotherapy. I've had loads of other hypnotherapists that have come to me to learn how to do it my way, to keep people safe and secure at all times and things like this. So if you're none of those, then I probably wouldn't consider. Maybe if you're a counsellor, things like that, then no problem. Okay.
So we've also had a couple of comments. So Laura's my good friend up in Scotland. She's put thank you, Darren and Peter. And Kay, who I used to work with in the cops, put thank you, fascinating stuff. It's amazing where the time goes, Pete. But we'll have to get you back on because we've had a lot of people on tonight. What I would ask everyone, if you can share the broadcast, because it's important to I'd love people that have not been able to see it or got an interest in it to get to see it as well. And also, if you've not done so already, again, I always put the play out every week, trying to get my YouTube numbers up. So if you can get to Darren Stanton Live and subscribe and hit the bell, because there's lots of good stuff going to be coming up for the rest of the year as lockdown lifts. And who knows, some of the events I've got going, I might even be persuaded to drag Pete along so you can meet him in person.
Thank you, Kate.
Anything else before we begin to just wind it up? Anything else from anybody? Well, again, what I'm trying to do is dig deep and bring you some of my most fascinating friends. And again, I'm looking to bring on some guys from the States as well that I've met. So Tackle will have a chat about you coming on, and Lisa, if you wanted to maybe do something. So please let me know. Just some final words, some from Jerry Springer. Final words, Peter. Some words of wisdom.
Basically, just stay safe. Obviously, the times that we're living in now, make sure you look after yourself, right? One of my favorite sayings that I like to use with people is, remember, you are what you think you are. Okay, if you think you're depressed, you will be depressed. If you think you're happy, you're going to be happy. So my advice is always think you're happy. It's a lot easier being happy than being depressed or anything like that. It's hard work being depressed. It's a lot easier being happy. So remember, every thought in your head is created by you. Create good thoughts all the time.
Absolutely.
Actions. And
also, Laura just made a very important reminder, because I've got a brain like a sieve. So for those of you,
I put my name down for it, but nobody's sent me an invite yet.
So again, if anyone's got an invite, I don't know if you've got the invites left, David or Laura. Pete's desperate to get an invite to Clubhouse, so they've already David, Clubhouse with Master David Beach. So David will sort you out. David up in Scotland will sort you out with that, because you'll get on there straight away.
My telephone number should come up at the bottom, so if you just let me know that
I'm going to
what I need to do,
so tomorrow,
or something.
Yeah, fantastic. So tomorrow on Clubhouse, if you're on Clubhouse at 7 p.m. UK time, I can't do the maths that quickly, but for Pacific and Eastern time, but I think Eastern's 5 hours behind, so that's what, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. That's 2 p.m. Eastern, and then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's like 9 in the morning, isn't it? No, 9 to 11 o'clock. Anyway, you work it out. So that's all going to be on basically marketing. What is it tomorrow, Laura? Just double check to make sure I'm telling people the correct information. I'm just going to double check. Bear with me. So you didn't turn up for the wrong thing. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, that was it. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain freeze then. It's all about sales, increase your sales.
I'll you with that, Darren.
So I'm showing my age now. I'm 31. I wish. So
in my eyes.
So all about influence and persuasion. So basically, if you want to increase your sales, learn the 6 magic laws of influence and persuasion, plus how to tap into people's psychological hot buttons. This will work in person. It'll work online. So if you want to kind of get some top tips, that's probably going to run for a couple of hours tomorrow, 7 p.m. UK time on Clubhouse. I look forward to joining there if you can make it. Yeah, and David just prompted me again, making more sales by influence and persuasion. So thanks so much, everyone. We've got past another one. It's been another great show. And again, without you guys being genuine and sincere about this, you know, I'm just trying to get the numbers right up. Then it takes time and momentum. But just a big shout out to David and Laura in Scotland, and Claire and in Timothy, and everybody else, you know, and Lisa and in the States, and Taquin that keep logging on, and Jay Marvin. You know, these are some great people that support me. So thank you very much. It is appreciated. And let's really give a big shout out again to Peter Wall for coming and being on the show tonight. So, what was that, David? Oh yeah, that's right. David, you on the triangle, me on the symbols. So on that note, I'm going to end the broadcast, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Next week's guest, a little bit different, is my good friend Buxo Dead and Woolly. Now, Buxo has been a good friend for many years. She's a professional actor. So what she's not done is nobody's business. She's been on Coronation Street in the UK, Casualty, Law and Order. She's done adverts with Peter Andre. She's done the West End. So she's, you know, very humble, down to earth, grounded, fantastic person, and she'll be talking. Even if you're not interacting specifically, it's just interesting to hear someone's journey, you know, because I think she was in her 30s or 40s, decided to be an actor, and she's worked very, very hard, and now she's kind of at the top of a tree and has done some fantastic productions. And I'm looking to have books and something I've got going on later in the year. So yeah, tune in next week, 8 p.m. UK time for Darren Stanton Live. In the meantime, go for what you want. Any support you need, please contact us. And thanks for listening. And again, big thanks to Peter for giving up his time tonight, because it's actually Peter's. What's the date? What's the years?
What's what?
Anniversary. Your anniversary. How many years is it?
Oh, anniversary. Oh my God, you just reminded me. It's my wedding anniversary. 42 years.
Let's give a big shout out. 42 years.
Can somebody please send me a hacksaw, because my spoon's wearing out. The tunnel's not getting big enough. I can't escape.
Get less for murder. All right, guys. You take care. Thanks for listening. See you very soon. Stay on the line.
Take care out there, yeah?
Stay where you are for now, Pete. I'll come back to you. Okay, guys. Take care. Have a good week.